don't want to go anywhere. Anna Lee Waters is screaming at somebody.
You just called me a
So in case you somehow missed it, yeah, I mean, that happened. Hayden Patriquin calls Anna Lee Waters an effing B. Anna Lee Waters charges into the St. Louis bench. Zane Navratil tries to destroy Gabe Tardio with a speed up. It was messy, and we're going to talk about that and so much more. We've got all of your favorite charts updated, ready to go. I've got new power rankings, new tier list, and at the risk of maybe being called an effing B myself, I'm going to be doing a lot of complaining. And so did you guys. We've got some listener mail. And before we dive in, I would appreciate it if you would like this video, subscribe to this channel, and if you're feeling generous, maybe even drop a comment down below. Let me know your take on this whole situation. Because even though this was the last match of the event, I mean, we've got to talk about it. So let's just get right to it. Now, first of all, I just think it's very funny that pickleball.com had this footage ready to go like minutes after this thing went down. We were still trying to figure out what the hell happened, and all of a sudden they dropped this on us. The way that they've captioned this, the way Connor Pardo's tweeted about this, the way that MLP's own official statement reads, it's pretty clear that this isn't seen as too big of a deal by them. This is just another viral pickleball moment, and nothing serious will come of this, although we have already seen our first rule change, which I think we can clearly say is a direct response to this. Now into the video, what actually happens? Well, I don't really hear it on here, but it's been reported 10,000 times over that Hayden Patriquin calls Anna Lee Waters an effing B. Right off the bat, he is in the wrong here 100%, denouncing this kind of behavior and this action. You really shouldn't have anybody talking to their opponents like this, and it also just has the added wrinkle of a man calling a woman a B-word, which just is not a good look for any professional sports league. To Hayden's credit, he is known as a trash talker, and I guess now we can say he is an equal opportunity trash talker, although certainly to a fault, as a line was definitely crossed this time. So after hearing this language, Anna Lee Waters wants to go give Hayden Patriquin a piece of her mind, which is a very understandable thing, and I really have no issue with that. The only thing that I do take issue with is how she went about trying to do it. Now again, emotions are high, tensions are high, just came off the court, and after hearing that, I mean, you know, go give him a piece of your mind. Unfortunately, to do that, she had to go into the St. Louis Shock bench, which in professional sports, you really shouldn't be doing. I've seen people comparing this to what if somebody charged into the opposing baseball team's dugout in Major League Baseball. And while I think that is a pretty good comparison, it also isn't a perfect comparison because at the risk of being, you know, just a little bit snarky, that's kind of like a real established sport, you know? They actually have like rules and guidelines that don't change every week. I don't know why, but a player going to the opposing team's bench in an NBA game or their dugout in a baseball game, it just feels a lot different than a pro pickleball player doing it. Also, keep in mind, before this rule change went in effect, this was literally their bench like 5 minutes ago, you know? So I don't know. Anna Lee Waters definitely should not be doing this, and she has definitely become the aggressor in this situation, but you can't really blame her all that much, am I right? I mean, I don't know. What happens here, too, is they kind of tried to say this guy shoved her, and
I didn't touch her. I stood right here.
you know, someone shouts, "Keep your hands off her," and Lee Waters threatens to, I don't know what she threatens, but she's going to send it to his inbox. I mean, look, this guy didn't really do anything wrong here. Maybe he could have been slightly more professional with kind of his whole demeanor. But again, tensions are high, emotions running high, and he's just been accused of something that if we don't have this footage of it not happening, who knows what comes of that? I don't think this guy did anything wrong. There was no shove, not even really even a chicken wing. He's just trying to keep the opposing player's team out of his bench area, which is a very reasonable thing to do. And then the third thing that happens is Zane Navratil tries to obliterate Gabe Tardio with a speed up after this.
Oh my. Side out. Wow. Full send.
This even got a little bit of attention from Barstool Sports. Does pickleball now have enforcers? Zane Navratil is like the hockey player who's only in there to start fights. We know he's a good team chemistry guy, but maybe he can add this to the resume too. The last thing that happens is we get just a completely cop-out, half-assed apology from Hayden Patriquin.
Yeah, some words were said, some words that shouldn't have been said. I mean, it is what it is. It's the heat of the moment. You know, you can call me whatever. I'm sorry. Shouldn't have done it, but it is. Yeah, I said it.
He admits to saying some things that should not have been said, and it's unfortunate, and it is what it is. That's not an apology. You don't get any credit for that. I've seen more sincere apologies after people hit a net cord winner against me. So yeah, no, not an apology. That about wraps up the drama that happened here. Of course, everybody and their mother has an opinion on this one. So just to recap, Hayden Patriquin, 100% in the wrong. He crossed a line with his trash talking. It does kind of go back to like, what do we want pickleball to be? Pro pickleball? Are we like tennis, or are we more like the NBA where you're allowed to do a little trash talking? This is what happened the other day in the NBA.
Look at this. Oh my goodness. I'm loving it. Well, whatever he said, he got Brooks and stitches.
Now, obviously it's different, but still. Hayden Patriquin crossed a line. He's in the wrong. But secondly, Annalie Waters, a little bit in the wrong here just because of how she went about this. Zane Navratil, I don't know. What do you guys think about this one? Is this targeting? I kind of feel like he's in the wrong here too, but he did keep it low. If it clips the net, who knows? I don't know. I'm going to say Zane Navratil is a little bit in the wrong here as well. And one last closing thought that we already touched on is nothing major is going to come of this. We do have this little rule change update, but let's be real. If MLP could have this happen every single event, yeah, they would do it. They would do it, and they would love it. Moving on to what actually happened on the courts. Before we do that, we have to talk about the courts. This bright orange and blue. This was the Orlando Squeeze hosting an event. The first time ever that somebody is hosting a home event, and they went for it, you know. They went bold. I'm not a fan of this. It's just, you know, anything that makes it harder to track the ball when I'm watching at home, I usually just am not a huge fan of. Some people liked it. There were some good memes about it. I don't know. I think it was kind of a miss. I don't really have many clips to share this week. I mean, I'm just trying to get this video out. I had to roll all my charts forward from 2024 to 2025. And also, the next MLP event is, by the time I uploaded this, probably already started. So I'm just trying to get something out before it goes stale. So with that in mind, let's just do a quick rundown day by day of all the notable matches. The first match on Thursday saw Miami Pickleball Club take down the SoCal Heartaches in a dream breaker. Now do also remember, we haven't talked about this. This is our first MLP with side-out scoring to 11. We're going to do more on that later. The next match was the first one on Championship Court and the first one between two teams that I think we can say are at least some degree of contenders this year. Texas Rangers defeated the Brooklyn Pickleball team 3-1, and the big storyline here was MLP's new service rule being put to the test. Now, I put together this short little reel to explain what the rule is. Since then, we've also got some better footage from the Texas Ranchers social, so I'm going to play that. New MLP service rule, you must drop it below your shoulder, you can't toss it up, and you must swing upward with the paddle head below your wrist. I've slowed it down, I've broken out my protractor, and it's still kind of hard to tell. I would not want to have to be a ref trying to make these determinations at real time. But regardless, this is an absolutely massive serve from Christian Alshon. Here we get a look at Eric Onson's doing it as well. He's getting a big advantage. Deckel Bar does not seem to be a fan of it. I mean, just look at how short this return is from Deckel Bar. There were a ton of missed returns from Deckel and Riley. This played a huge factor in this match. What do y'all think of this rule? Is this it? Christian Alshon doesn't actually seem to be a fan of this rule despite using it to win. Let me know what y'all think. Now, after I posted that reel, also we had a few more faults called later in the tournament. Here's a look at some of those.
7-1. Service fault. Oh, man.
Stop play. Release height above the shoulder. 3-2-1. Stop play. Release came above.
Service warning for
I want to see the crowd going absolutely ballistic.
Fault.
Oh, that's a second for Zane.
Second serve.
And we've also had our second rule change to talk about. The shoulder drop is gone. It is now top of the hip. So we'll see if that cleans things up too. Zane Navratil, of course, would still like to see the drop serve be implemented. And Connor Pardo says,
How about no?
so behind those big serves, Texas took home a 3-1 victory over the Brooklyn Pickleball team, and it was a little bit of a tough outing for Riley Newman. The Atlanta Bouncers got a 3-1 win over the New York Hustlers, and this was the first of a few pickles that were handed out to New York. Later on in the day, we saw the Columbus Sliders make their debut against the New Jersey Fives, and CJ and Andre lost to Will Howes and Zane Navratil, and what was a pretty surprising result to me. I had Columbus in the S tier as one of the tippy-top contenders coming into the season, pretty much on the strength of this men's doubles team and the strength of Andre Daescu, how good he's been on the PPA Tour lately. I was incredibly high on this team. So seeing them drop their first game to Will and Zane, definitely a sign for concern. This was also our first look at Annalie Waters and Megan Dizon. We'll see how they hold up over the course of this event. Remember, Annalie Waters only lost one game all of last season with Mari Humberg. The first game on Friday saw the Orlando Squeeze get a regulation win, taking home 3 points against the SoCal Heartaches, and then the Columbus Sliders were back in action against the Dallas Flash. So Columbus starts off their season against New Jersey, the runner-up, and then they play Dallas, the champion. Definitely a tough start, and CJ and Andre lose again. They are now 0-2, so the pressure is building. They've got to figure out that men's doubles line, or it's going to be a long season for this team. And the next time that Columbus plays, will it be against the Carolina Hogs, and they will be playing against Ben and Colin John. So the pressure will be immense in that game. Also, note here in women's doubles, Hurricane Tyra Black and Georgia Johnson got an 11-1 win over Paris Todd and Leia Jansen. Columbus led 2-1, and then Georgia and Tyra won 10 straight. JW and Georgia then pickled CJ and Leia, so Georgia at this point has won 21 points in a row. Over on Grandstand Court, Miami Pickleball Club got a 3-2 win over the Utah Black Diamonds. And then we saw the Brooklyn Pickleball team. Again, I haven't talked about this yet, but they were formerly the DC Pickleball team. Then they traded themselves, their entire team, front office and everything, to Brooklyn. I mean, okay, I guess, yeah, good for them. Anyway, they lost in a dream breaker to the New Jersey Fives, and this one more or less went the way we can expect a lot of New Jersey Fives matches to go this year, with Annalie Waters going 2-0 and Zane Navratil going 0-2 before they ultimately come through in the dream breaker. Next, the Dallas Flash picked up a 4-0 regulation win over the New York Hustlers. This is what I have as the best team versus the worst team. And remember how Georgia Johnson had scored 21 straight points coming into this? Well, they start off with a pickle in women's doubles. She picked up another pickle in mixed doubles. So if you do the math real quick, that is 43. That is 43 straight points scored by Georgia Johnson. Unbelievable. A 43-0 run. Later in the day, we got the Carolina Hogs debut. This is a new logo, but the same kind of vibe on this team. It's basically just Ben Johns, the most expensive person in MLP, trying to carry the least expensive roster in MLP to victories. Here's another thing I want to talk about too, is there is just some inherent, unfairness in how the schedule breaks, in my opinion. You have the Columbus Sliders. They have 0 points in 2 matches. In their third match, playing against the Carolina Hogs making their debut. You can already feel the pressure and the urgency for the Sliders, plus they've had a few games to try to feel things out and figure out how they're going to work as a team. And then the Carolina Hogs making their debut. That just doesn't really seem fair. But to borrow a line from Hayden Patriquin,
it is what it is.
Texas would pick up a 4-0 victory over Atlanta. And the final match of the day was the hometown Orlando Squeeze getting a dream breaker win over the Phoenix Flames. On Saturday morning on Grandstand Court, we were treated to an incredible match between the Columbus Sliders and the Texas Ranchers. This one was a lot of fun to watch, and I actually spun up a little bit of a simulcast live stream. We called it Statty Pickles, and it was me and Ben from Real Clear Stats. He was live tracking the stats from this match as we watched it, and I just kind of, talked. It was like me, Matty Pickles, doing a bunch of stats, Statty Pickles, and since he was busy statting, I just had to talk the whole time, so Chatty Pickles. Anyway, it was a ton of fun. It was more of a proof of concept for seeing if this is something we want to do in the future. And while I don't quite think we nailed the format, I think there's some potential here. So if you're feeling really bored, at least go click on that video. The replay is up and kind of see what we were talking about as that match was happening. This one really could have gone either way. 2 of the 4 games required extra pickle. 2 of the 4 games ended on foot faults. 3 of the 4 games ended on video challenges. If you're looking for something to go back and replay, this would be a great place to start. Over on Championship Court, while that match was going on, the Carolina Hogs were playing their second and final match of the event. And that's right, they're only playing 2 events this tournament, and they lost in regulation to the Dallas Flash. Ben and Colin did get a win. However, women's and mixed continues to be a problem point for the Carolina Hogs. Orlando got a regulation win over the Utah Black Diamonds. New Jersey got a regulation win over the Atlanta Bouncers. Brooklyn, a regulation win over the Miami Pickleball Club. New Jersey took down the Phoenix Flames. The LA Mad Drops got a 3-1 win over the Miami Pickleball Club. And we have to talk about them because Hunter Johnson was unavailable. Apparently he injured his hand or something. and they didn't bring any of their subs with them. Remember, we expanded rosters. We added a 5th and 6th players. We did a whole draft for them. You're supposed to have your subs. And LA just didn't even bring him, and apparently this is allowed under the rules. They can just use whatever league-provided on-site sub was available, who happened to be AJ Kohler, who's a very capable player with Premier League experience. So they went with that, and however, I think we might have cyberbullied MLP into changing this rule. What was the point of expanding the rosters, having your own subs, if you could just not bring them? We already devalued these roster spots by allowing other teams to just steal them from other players. So to me, this whole thing was just so poorly thought out. Clearly not a cohesive vision on this. I don't know. I think this is a good rule change. And then the final match of Saturday was the Brooklyn Pickleball team defeating the Orlando Squeeze. To kick off the final day on Sunday, we're going to take a look at the stats in a second, but Georgia Johnson, spoiler, is far and away the MVP of this event. She was just lights out incredible. By the way, did I mention that I hate the Dallas Flash and they're my rival? I mean, some of these charts were really painful for me to make. The theme on Sunday was the break-up, shake-up women's doubles showdowns. We had Anna Bright against Rachel Rohrabacher in women's doubles. Anna Bright did get the better of her there. However, Rachel did strike back in the second mixed doubles game and get a victory over Anna there. However, the shock, just too much in a dream breaker. Another thing about St. Louis is they switched up their mixed doubles lines from what we saw last year. They now have Anna playing with Gabe and Hayden with Kate. But even if they don't figure out how to start winning mixed doubles games, they're still just so good. Their gender doubles are phenomenal, and their dream breaker is just elite. Gabe Tardio has absolutely leveled up. He's got his first career PPA Tour gold medal under his belt. This team is still a tough out as ever. Slider's got a 4-0 dub over the Utah Black Diamonds. New Jersey in our second breakup shakeup showdown. Catherine Parento gets the victory over Annalie Waters. That is the first defeat of the season for Annalie Waters, and it already ties the total number of losses she had in women's doubles last year. However, Will and Zane were able to get a win over Kwong and AJ in men's doubles, and we went to a dream breaker where, interestingly enough, we had another little shakeup here as we got some man-on-woman dream breaker action. Always fun to see. And my theory here is that you really need to be careful when you do this. Typically, when you shake this up, you're going to be putting your women up in the second spot against their man, and then your man will be up against their woman in the third spot, but it doesn't always come around 3 full times to that third lineup. So just some food for thought. I've got a lot of theories on dream breakers. I'm going to send out a survey soon. I want to get your thoughts on a few theoretical lineups, and I want to do a whole video on dream breaker game theory. So stay tuned for that, and if that sounds like something that would be interesting to you, make sure you're subscribed to this channel, and drop me a comment below so I know where to focus my time and energy. While we're on the subject of dream breakers too, big shout out to the guy Eric Tice. He's been on this channel many times before, including on our somewhat ill-fated MLP draft live stream, but he is doing box scores for every single dream breaker. This has been the #1 item on my MLP wish list for so long, and I'm just so happy that somebody is finally doing it, because I was too lazy to do it myself. Because that really shouldn't be our job. Moving along, Texas picked up a 3-1 win over the Chicago Slice. However, James Ignatowicz and Max Freeman did hand Eric Gonsons and Christian Alshon their only defeat of the tournament, before ultimately coming up just short of mixed doubles. The Orlando Squeeze got a regulation win over the LA Mad Drops. Columbus beat Miami 4-0, and then the final match of the tournament. We already talked about all the fallout from this one. Woo, what a way to end it. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into some fun with pickleball charts and data. And now remember when I said I was going to sound like an effing bee and do a lot of complaining? Well, here you go. The MLP website was a total mess the entire tournament. The results were just so slow to get updated. Oftentimes they were wrong. The standings, as of uploading this video, are still completely busted. Especially the player standings are just unusable. So thankfully, courtesy once again of Eric Tice of the Dink, we've got some standings to look at here. And moving on, we're going to look at one of my favorite ways to visualize these standings. This is just a game-by-game look for each team. You can see over here on the right the total points and the average points. I'm just sorting by total. We can also see what we have to look forward to at MLP Columbus, which, again, by the time I'm uploading this, I'm pretty sure is already happening, but oh well. We also have it in cumulative points by the number of matches played. So, just look at this. Columbus, by the end of this weekend, will have played 12 of their 25 matches. Meanwhile, SoCal Hard Eights will have only played 2. That's pretty crazy. The standings are going to be very lopsided for a while, but it'll all balance out by the end of the season. And speaking of scheduling, we already did a little bit of complaining about how it's not super fair when you have a team playing their 10th match against somebody playing their first match. But also, I just am really annoyed that we don't have a complete schedule for the season yet. We know which teams are at which events, but the actual game-by-game schedule is being made on an event-by-event basis. We do know that every team will play every other team at least once and no more than twice, so that is already more balanced than what we saw last year, which is good. Here we'll take a quick look at the average point differential for each team. On the x-axis going left to right, we have gender doubles, and on the y-axis top to bottom, we have mixed doubles. I mean, immediately, Dallas Flash, they jump out. They absolutely crushed everybody that they played. You can see pretty distinctly too, if we just draw a line here, that a lot of our preseason priors coming in have kind of been confirmed to a degree already. There's nothing too surprising here, except for maybe the Chicago Slice down here. But keep in mind, they've only played 2 games, and that's going to be an important thing to note with all of the data that I'm sharing with you here today. Here we've got the same data, but this time in a table, and if I'm going too fast on any of these, go ahead and check me out over on twitter.com or Instagram, where I will be sharing or have already shared all of these charts. Throw me a follow there. Up next, we've got everybody's favorite chart. On the left-hand side, we just have your average point differential, and along the x-axis, we have the keeper/draft cost. Coming into the season, you could keep a player you drafted in 2024 for 1/2 of the price that you paid in that auction, and you had to drop at least 1 player. Then there was a subsequent free agency auction where everybody filled out their rosters. So right away, and again, he's only played 4 games of side-out scoring to 11 points, but Ben Johns has a negative point differential, and given how much he costs, I mean, you've got to ask the question of, is he worth it? Now, if you just replaced him with an average player, yeah, no duh, this team would be significantly worse. However, did spending so much money on Ben dissuade them from filling out the rest of their roster with better players? You definitely could have a competitive team with Ben Johns at that price on your roster. You would just have to continue spending money around him, which the Hogs were not willing to do. A few other standouts is pretty much the entire Dallas Flash up in this good value region, Tina Pisnick and Eric Onsens, although maybe a little bit of an asterisk here for Eric Onsens. He was a keeper for Miami for $0 because he was drafted in Challenger League. Texas drafted Noah Cliff and then traded him to Miami for cash. So there is some acquisition capital that should be associated with Eric. I just don't really know what the figures were in any of these trades, so we're not including it. We've also got Jessie Irvin right here. She had an amazing week, as we said, and at that price is an absolute steal. And then over here on the right, we have Annalie Waters, Anna Bright, Andre Dascu, Christian Alshon. These are all expensive players that to this point in the season have been worth it. We also have the 2 Orlando Squeeze men here. And down at the bottom, a lot of these teams are the newly promoted challenger teams. And this kind of shows us that I think the talent pool in the free agency draft just wasn't all that deep. It was very, very difficult for these teams to try to fill out a truly competitive roster. But that's not even an excuse for the New York Hustlers, remember? They had a good team last year. They sold everybody for money, and now they are a bottom feeder. No disrespect to the players on that team. They are all very talented players that could be a contributing piece on a good team. Just there isn't enough firepower as they currently are constructed. Here we'll take a quick look at just the individual player standings. We've got their record, their average point differential across gender and mixed doubles, and the total. First thing that jumps out to us here is the 3 Dallas Flash players at the very top of this. Then we have Annalie Waters, Tina Pisnick, and Jessie Irvin with the 6th best average point differential across all of her games. She only played 4 games, but still. All the way down in the 36th best point differential is Ben Johns. And down the bottom for New York, we have Spiritus and Kong. They're 2 women. They went 0-2 as a women's doubles team, and they got pickled in both matches. Definitely a tough outing. In fact, let's move along and do some analysis on individual partnerships. Here we've got men's doubles. We're sorting this by the average point differential. We've also got their record here. I've got their dupers, their opponent's dupers, kind of just as a proxy for strength of schedule. And then my 2 little pet metrics, wins above expected and wins above average. And so again, small sample size, some of these teams have only played 2 games, so take it all with a grain of salt at this point in the season. And also, I'm not even really sure how good this duper formula is. It ties out to the graphics that they show on the screen, but I haven't actually tested it to see if it is actually a good metric of win probabilities. But still, it's all I have to work with, and it's fun to do, so we've got it here. Basically, just think above this wins above expected as is a team outperforming what their duper is relative to their opponent's duper. And the next one to the right is just how would the average duper team be expected to perform against this team's schedule. So to put this in context here, we can take a team like Andre and CJ. They are underperforming based on their duper, but they are still overperforming based on what the average team would do. And I think that does kind of track for how their event went. Going 3-3 against a pretty difficult schedule is probably not great for where we need Andre and CJ to be if Columbus are going to be a contender, but it's definitely better, or pretty close at least, to what I would expect an average team to do. Another example is down at the very bottom. We have Donald Young and Zane Ford. They went 0-2, but that's kind of what we expect from them. However, it is definitely well below what we would expect from an average team. And before we move on to look at women's doubles, I want to point out that we actually have a pretty decent amount of parity here, at least relative to women's doubles. The highest point differential here is plus 0.43, and the lowest is minus 5.5. Remember those numbers, because there are 3 teams with a higher point differential in women's doubles than the best men's team, and there are 3 women's teams with a worse point differential than the worst men's teams. There is a much larger spread here. I mean, the New York Hustlers got pickled in both of their games. The biggest data point that jumps out to me here is Annalie Waters and Megan Dizon being 4-2. That is already twice the amount of losses Annalie Waters had last year in women's doubles with Mari Humberg. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is last year, every women's doubles partnership was new. They were still trying to figure it out. This year, Annalie Waters and Megan Dizon is a new partnership. However, when they played Jade and Catherine, or when they played Anna and Kate, those teams have already had a full year of playing together. So I think if we give this partnership time, we don't really need to be that concerned yet. It kind of felt like on the broadcast watching these matches, the announcers were very critical of Megan Dizon's play, and I feel like they were maybe just a little overly harsh on her. I thought she held up pretty well. And I think over the course of the season, this partnership will come together nicely and be just as dangerous New Jersey Fives women were last year. Here we've got the top half of mixed doubles, and Georgia Johnson and JW Johnson were able to carry over their success from the PPA Tour into MLP. Annalie Waters and Will Howes look just as dangerous as ever. Jesse and Tyson played well, only in 2 games together. I liked what I saw from Eric and Tina. It's pretty funny to me that stylistically, Eric Onsens and Kwang Duong do play a pretty similar strategy. And last year, Tina kind of had to be the adult on the court, the chaperone for Kwang Duong and his hyper-aggressive strategy. This year, she's doing a pretty similar role, just with Eric Onsens instead of Kwang Duong, who is also an incredibly aggressive player. Again, note we got our first look at Anna Bright and Gabe Tardio, as well as our first look at Hayden Patrick-Quinn and Kate Fahey, who went 0-2. And then down at the bottom here, we have both the Genies, Jeannie Arokina for the Utah Black Diamonds, and Jeannie Bouchard with Jack Sock. So with that, I'm going to be updating my power rankings and my tier list. Here's what I had preseason. I was definitely a little too high on the Andre Diescu hype train, and that has settled down just a little bit in the last couple weeks on the PPA Tour and here at MLP. So I'm going to go ahead and drop them down to the A tier and also drop the Shock and the Fives up into the S tier. I debated leaving both of them in the A tier as well, just because, Dallas was an absolute freight train, and remember, that really does pain me to say because they are my rivals and I do hate them, but they just look the part, and until they lose, they are going to be in the number 1 spot. I put Columbus at number 4 ahead of Texas just because they did have that one head-to-head win, although it was very close, and I have Texas as the last team in the A tier, so these 5 teams to me have separated themselves a little bit from the pack. Brooklyn, I've dropped down from the A tier to the B tier. I'm keeping LA where they are. They weren't at full strength, so assuming they get Hunter Johnson back, I think they're pretty safe in that B tier. And then into the C tier, we are taking Chicago Slice. We only saw 2 matches from them, dropping them down. Into the D tier, we are dropping the Carolina Hogs. And into the E tier, we've dropped the Utah Black Diamonds all the way from the C tier to the E tier. So for our final segment, I've done a little bit of complaining. I'm going to do a little bit more, and you guys are going to do some as well. I posted on Twitter asking just for some listener mailbag, some complaints, your MVPs, hot takes, whatever you had, I wanted to hear it. Let's see what we got. To start off, before we get into complaining, I think this is a nice thing to remember. Trying to stay positive, MLP is not perfect, but we are very lucky that these players have the opportunity to make money doing this and that we get to watch it for pretty much free. I pay $6 a month for pickleball.com, but other than that, yeah, I'm pretty happy. Frank, the CEO of Pickleball, says feels like they're slightly more balanced, but the top is still pretty heavy. I'm going to disagree there. I don't think we have a whole lot of balance overall. The top is very heavy to me. I feel like I could already tell you who the top 6 teams are going to be, And I really don't think anybody outside of that, maybe LA, is going to be a legitimate contender. Keeping on that point, Jim Kloss says MVP is Georgia Johnson. Duh. Yeah, I mean, duh. But the major issue is the stratification is worse than any of us expected. He goes on to elaborate that we need to get gambling into pickleball, and with such lopsided teams, that's not good for gambling. Again, sticking with this whole lack of parity thing, here's an interesting question from Ryan Watson. Starting from the bottom of the standings and working your way up, how many teams do you have to combine before you feel like you really have a competitive team? And looking at my power rankings, I think you could take the best players from Carolina down and you could absolutely make a contender out of that. But mainly just because it has Ben Johns. But even then, hot take alert, after last year, do you even want him? Keeping on the theme of MVP, it was pretty much unanimously Georgia Johnson. Let's talk a little bit about rally scoring and side-out scoring. I still will forever die on this hill, and maybe I just need to do a full video only dedicated to this topic where I can really articulate my thoughts out, but I just feel like rally scoring has forever been misunderstood. I get why some people don't like it, but I would have absolutely kept it for MLP. Ben from Real Clear Stats has put the data together. Here you could see the average length of games this year was significantly down, and it is significantly more volatile if you're trying to fit into a TV window. This one seems honestly pretty divisive. I think it kind of skews maybe a little bit towards rally just for MLP, but I don't know. I do think that the games went too quick for me. They were over before they even started in most cases. This topic isn't going away anytime soon, so maybe I will get that video put together. We got a lot of feedback on the court color. We talked about that. The orange wasn't for me, but it was cool. The whole concept of having the Orlando Squeeze as the host team. In fact, the Texas Ranchers will be the host team here in Austin over Memorial Day weekend. If you want to attend that, you can use code BASIL at checkout and get a discount applied to your MLP Austin tickets. So the last thing before we go is I put together a competition. It is the Matty Pickles MLP Pick'em Invitational, and this is the results. We've got a bunch of different podcasters, writers, just people who tweet a lot like me. And here's how we did. We'll be tracking this over the course of the season. It's a ton of fun. And if you want to get involved in some picks, you can do Fantasy MLP Pick'em. My buddy Andy is trying to fire this up. It's not really fantasy at this point. It's just a pick'em. I've got a link to that below. We're going to call it a video there. Again, I think MLP Columbus has probably already started by the time I'm uploading this. So I guess I'll see you again next week to recap that. Until then, thanks.